One of my closest friends was Rhonda Rochkind, who would get married and become Rhonda Plisco, and her husband Rob and I became fast friends. She had 3 children, all of whom I knew, and all of whom visited me when I was in the United States or in Europe, where I moved 20 years ago. I think about her now as Hanukkah has hit over this Thanksgiving holiday period, because our political division and the pandemic have given me, certainly, an appreciation of lighting candles for Hanukkah as a means of showing light and solidarity. And for me, light has a quite personal meaning, because my name, taken all the way back to Greece, and the original family name, means light. And it is especially dear this year as I finish filming my Holocaust movie. Hanukkah almost always falls in December, so the start of the 8-day Jewish holiday, falling as it did this year during the Thanksgiving holiday, was a bit jarring for many. There are those who prefer when Hanukkah is closer to Christmas, so they can tap into the Christian mega holiday national excitement, as it were. But others like it because their kids are off from school for a very long winter break. But many of my Jewish friends said they were actually relieved that there was some daylight between the 2 religious holidays. I read a quote in the New York Times where someone mentioned that when you decouple it, you can think about what Hanukkah is. For the first time, there's time to actually consider Hanukkah. What she means is that Hanukkah is much more than just the parts of the story that are well known. Jews fighting persecution in 2nd century BC, having only enough oil for 1 night, but miraculously it burned for 8, allowing them to rededicate the temple in Jerusalem. To a lot of people, the meaning of Hanukkah is like your cell battery is on low and it lasts 2 hours. It's very neat and it's a tidy message. But actually the story is really intense and much more, and dark and serious. And some of those elements Rhonda taught me through the years that I knew her. And as many of my friends say, Hanukkah is not the Jewish Christmas, and people need to stop treating it that way. Indeed, Hanukkah is generally marked as a fun, lighthearted, and religious, perhaps less significant holiday, one puffed up and transformed by its proximity in the calendar to Christmas. Kids open presents, sometimes one each night, play a rambling, gambling, spinning top game called Dreidel. In fact, I still have one that Rhonda gave me many, many years ago. And they eat fried foods and donuts and potato pancakes to commemorate the mythical oil. But the story that historians tell is heavier, about violent Jewish zealots called the Maccabees, who were fighting back not only against the religious oppression of the Greeks, but also against fellow Jews who adopted Greek ways, such as idol worship. The Maccabees killed Jews who wanted to assimilate and to stop doing Jewish things, like keeping kosher and circumcising. Sorting through these conflicting interpretations of Hanukkah is perhaps taking on new energy in 2021 America, a place where rising anti-Semitism and intense interest in identity seems to be coming to the fold. My friends say a lot of people are thinking lately about their Jewishness and what makes them unique and different. It was a theme I encountered time and time again doing interviews for my Holocaust film. When I began researching this film 4 years ago, I started with Morris and Clendenin, and they referenced works that allowed me to revisit the historic background of many of the Jewish holidays, which provided me enormous perspective. The Jews obviously are not going to give up their myths, because it gives them amusement and it gives them comfort. But if you break down Hanukkah in its most elemental aspects, it is a pretty grim holiday. Hanukkah has always varied, and it's always had competing narratives, depending on the era and the specific Jews celebrating it. In the decades after the founding of the State of Israel, after World War II and the Holocaust, there was an emphasis on the power of the small band of fighters at the center of the story, the Maccabees. In the Hanukkah story, a Jewish priest named Matthias and his sons led them in a bloody revolt against a much larger group of Greeks and the pro-assimilation Jews. Hanukkah for children, at least in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, was a celebration of young Jewish boys being strong, Jewish, and proud. There was an emphasis on Jewish masculinity. Jacques Berlinerblau, a professor here in D.C. at Georgetown University Center for Jewish Civilization, noted, unlike Passover, it's not one where we talk a lot about, we just do it. It's not the type of holiday you want to take a deep look at. The holiday's theme of the few versus the many became a focus in the early decades of the new small state of Israel, often at war with its many, many neighbors. Many saw that as part of the Hanukkah that they related to. There were explicit lines drawn between the Maccabees and the emerging Jewish warrior. But there has always been a certain aspect of Hanukkah, and that's about light. In particular, a small metaphorical light that's able to illuminate or shine in a wider darkness. That can be an all-purpose symbol for just about anyone, or be about the role of responsibility of Jews to be a unique light. Some feel that has become proportionately larger along with the modern interfaith movement emphasizing sameness. The Washington Post recently had a series of interviews about Hanukkah, and I was moved by the comments of several mothers who said that the heightened political division and isolation during this COVID-19 period we're all going through changed their perspectives of Hanukkah and made them appreciate their religious obligation to light candles as a way of publicly showing light and solidarity. The metaphor of light is powerful when the climate doesn't seem so close-knit anymore. One friend of mine noted, the old message of 15 to 20 years ago was, it's all about unity. Now it's all about identity and difference. The Jewish story is in conflict between sameness and difference. On the one hand, our grandparents fought so hard for us to fit in, to pass, to quote-unquote be like everybody. And so we're conflicted. These conversations have been going on amongst Jews forever. Should we be more like us? Should we be more like them? Should we hide or should we celebrate our particularities? Do you put a mezuzah on the door or not want people to know much about who you are? Now, he said, someone views me as white. And it's like, no, I'm Jewish. Events on Hanukkah in recent years have spotlighted Jewish differences in both negative and controversial ways. In 2019, a man barged into the home of a rabbi in Monsey, New York during a Hanukkah celebration, and he stabbed 5 people with a machete, one of whom died. Investigators later found anti-Semitic writings in the suspect's home. Donald Trump picked Hanukkah to sign an executive order meant to strengthen protections against anti-Semitism on college campuses. The order says Jews can be considered to have been targeted on the basis of their nationality or race, triggering controversy over whether it was othering American Jews, and also limiting criticism of the State of Israel. Conflict all around. Hanukkah has always been open to different interpretation, but in Orthodox Judaism, there is always emphasis on a miracle surrounding the renewal of the Holy Temple. People will have more than one party during these 8 days of observance. Good food, family, and friends. It's a general focus that the Jewish nation was under siege, and they had a miracle. And here they were, years later, still kicking and screaming.